All right. So I think there we go. I think we've got everything ready. Okay,
Oh, and
so
Linda, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I was hoping to ask this earlier. I see Alex in the room. Alex, what is your last name? And I'm so sorry to interrupt again. I'm taking casual role here on the
Sure.
side.
Okay, it's a Berljaev.
Mhm. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
okay. So Medicare Part B. We're going to start. I believe we completed Part A yesterday. So we're going to take a quick look at Part B today. And then I believe we'll move on to Part D. But let's take a look at Part B. Okay, so what you need to know about Part B. Medicare Part B is medical or outpatient care. It's things like your doctor visits, physical therapy, durable medical equipment. It's the care you receive when you are not admitted to the hospital. Like Part A, Part B is major medical insurance. It offers comprehensive coverage for a wide range of medical expenses. It's aimed to help minimize the out-of-pocket expenses that you or the policyholder has, and it doesn't generally cover the expenses in full. Usually you have some part, some cost share, some percentage of the charges fall to you, the beneficiary, but it is designed to limit your out-of-pocket costs. Medicare Part B, it is an individual insurance product. Um, each person who is enrolled is charged a premium, so it's not a group plan. If you're enrolled, you pay a premium to have it. You can get your Part B premium or your Part B plan through either the original Medicare system or through the Medicare Advantage system. What your copays, cost shares will be depends on the system of care that you've chosen. Learning objective, what we're hoping is after we've gone through our review today of what Part B covers and what Part B resources are available to you, we hope you take away the ability to share with others what their costs, what your costs would be for Part B, how you can determine what benefits you receive from Part B, and if you would be potentially eligible for assistance with your Part B premium or subject to a surcharge. All right, so what's covered, the benefits and the costs? So our Part B, again, it's our doctor visits, it's the outpatient services that we receive, could be in the hospital or somewhere else, but it is outpatient services. It's tests, labs, x-rays, durable medical equipment, which is things like wheelchairs, walkers, oxygen. Part B covers most of your preventative care services. Um, Preventative care, an example of a preventative service would be like your flu shot. That is preventative and it is covered by your Medicare Part B. So Medicare entitlement, let's not focus on entitlement. Really what we're talking about here is when it's been determined that you're eligible for Medicare Part A and or Part B. So for most people, once they have been determined eligible for Part A, they don't have any additional premium. There's no cost to them because they've already paid into it. They've through their employment, they've paid in through their employer, through their employment, and so they've reached the amount of credit hours that they need to have, so there's no additional fee. For Part B, you do have to pay the premium, and that is paid to the federal government. for most people, or once you start collecting Social Security, the payment is deducted from your Social Security check. If you start or enroll in Part B before you start collecting Social Security, you would then have to pay the premium direct to the federal government. And I think they generally charge you quarterly for that. There, it's highlighted here, MSP standard and IRMA. We're going to look at that in just a second. Um, the Part B premium is standard for most of us, but there are some exceptions. So for the standard premium in 2025, it's $185. The rate does change every year. It is determined by Social Security. They figure out what the cost is going to be. So it goes up, and generally it's just a little bit. There are people, however, that are considered to be low income, and if you qualify or meet the requirements for low income, your Part B premium can be subsidized or paid in full. It might be free to you, but paid by the state. So it's subsidized or free if you're low income, or if you are considered a high income earner, you may incur a surcharge. And that surcharge, it's called IRMA. It's the income related monthly adjusted amount. Again, Social Security determines what that amount is. And it factors into about 8% of everybody on Medicare who pays a surcharge. Okay, again, our system of care, original Medicare or Medicare Advantage, Part B is a part of both systems of care. So Part A and Part B, Part A and Part B. Okay, so now we're going to look at this chart. Let me see if I can get this over here so you can see it. So we looked at this chart yesterday. Are you seeing it? Someone nod. Okay. This is for the Part A covered services. On the back side of this chart is the Part B covered services. So what this does is it talks about what you can receive under your Part B coverage, what the benefit amount is, what Medicare pays, and what you would be responsible for. So your typical medical expenses for Part B, your doctor's services, inpatient, outpatient services, supplies, physical therapy, speech, these types of things. So their benefit, it's usually unlimited. So as long as it's determined to be medically necessary, it's going to be covered. Medicare pays 80% of the approved amount, and then you pay the other 20%. Now, with Part B, there is a deductible, and it's $257 this year. So Medicare does not begin paying until after you have met your deductible. So you pay the initial $257 deductible and then 20% of the approved charges for the rest of your coverage. Does that make sense? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to guess that that's a yes. So then we have like lab services, your blood tests, your analysis. Those are unlimited if medically necessary. They're generally paid at 100% of the approved amount. So this is what Medicare has determined is the reasonable amount that should be paid. So any doctor that is contracted with Medicare will accept the amount that Medicare has determined is the approved amount. You would pay nothing. Home health care, that's your part-time or intermittent skilled care, home health aid services, durable medical equipment, etc. Again, unlimited as long as it is determined to be necessary and meets Medicare's requirements. They pay 100% of the approved amount, 80% for durable medical equipment. So you would have, of course, 20% a copayment or your percentage for the durable medical equipment. Outpatient hospital treatment, these are diagnostic services, things you would receive, but it's outpatient hospital care. So you don't have to be admitted for it. And again, unlimited, you basically are looking at 20% of the billed amount. There is coverage for blood. There is a little caveat down here. If the hospital gets blood from a blood bank at no charge, you won't pay anything for replacing it. If the hospital has to buy blood for you, then you must either pay the hospital costs for the first 3 units of blood you get in a calendar year, or have the blood donated by you or someone else. So you do have to replace the blood. Again, here's the unlimited amount of benefit. 80% is paid of the approved amount after your deductible. And starting with the 4th pint, the first 3 pints plus 20% are what you would pay for. You don't have to remember this off the top of your head. There is this chart, just so that you know it's there and that those could be expenses you would incur. Any questions about this before I move on from the chart? Okay. And all right. So we've looked at this chart before, I believe, yesterday. This just kind of represents an exercise that you can do in general to figure out, what costs you or your client might incur. So as a whole, so if you're looking at what would you, expect to pay your Part B deductible, that would be your $257, your 20% copay, um, depending on what it is, how you could figure in what charges you might incur. The Part B, whoops, I didn't want that to happen. There we go. Part B excess charges. So what those are, if you have a doctor that, if you see a doctor that is not contracted for Medicare, so they don't accept, Medicare per se, they can charge you beyond the 20% that would be your portion. They can charge you whatever Medicare doesn't pay. So that negotiated rate, that agreed amount that Medicare has paid, if they aren't contracted to accept that amount, they can bill you. And that's what those excess charges are. Okay. Again, you can have Part B under either system, under Original Medicare or Medicare Advantage. The other options for coverage, there's the commercial coverage that you would get. What we're talking about primarily here today, for those who have additional coverage through an employer group plan, or if you're receiving state assistance Medicaid. So that's providing your additional benefits. So yeah, this is just kind of for you to figure out where you fall in the categories. And I think, nope, nope, nope. Let me go here. All right. So what we want to do, we want to look at covered services. So for Part B, we know that medical care is covered, preventative services are covered. There are other services and supplies that are covered. We looked at those on the chart. These are your out-of-pocket costs, what you pay for the premium. Oops, happy mouse. And then your portion of the cost sharing. So what I want you to do now is kind of think at what we've looked at, what we've talked about, Part B, maybe Part A, and any questions that you have about this coverage, or any questions you think your clients might have about this coverage. And then we'll talk about those and see how we can answer them for you, or maybe help you figure out a way you would answer the clients. So if you're something you're uncomfortable with, and how would I explain this to somebody, maybe we can help you determine how you could do that. So I'll give you a couple minutes and then we'll talk about it. So I'm going to let you keep thinking. But if anybody does have a question or wants to go ahead and bring something up, go ahead and jump in at any time. It's like there's a question in the chat, so let me look at that. But please go ahead, think, or just jump in.
This is Sharon. I've got a quick question.
Mhm.
If you're talking to a client and they're trying to estimate what their costs will be for a medical concern, how do you find out what the allowable amount is that Medicare will pay and whether or not they're going to have to pay additional for some reason?
So you would have to contact, so like Medicare, they can check to see what Medicare, the doctor can, it's going to depend on how they bill it, right? So there's amounts assigned to the code. So it depends on the services that are provided. Where you're going to look at like potentially excess coverage or something is if you see a doctor that does not accept the coverage that you have. Okay. So if they accept Medicare, original Medicare, then they're going to accept what Medicare pays, and you're just going to have your 20%. Or if it's somebody who's with your Medicare Advantage plan, right? Okay. Okay, so in the chat it says, is there a list or something similar that shows all the durable medical equipment? I don't know, actually. And I don't know if one of the other RTCs does. I haven't seen a list. I just know that types of things that are considered durable medical equipment. So I would guess that it's probably, go ahead, Noreen. Yes, yes, go.
On Medicare.gov, there's an "Is it covered" function that you can go on there. There's also an app that you can load on your phone that it will tell you if a piece of equipment or a test or something is covered. It won't necessarily tell you the price of it. That's something that doctors and hospitals have to work with people with. We don't really help people with costs for coverage for procedures. That's a service. That's the service side. But "Is it covered" is the app or on Medicare.gov, the link.
Well, that makes sense. It seems like there should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just haven't
I just
seen
didn't
it.
want you to keep going up. I'm not sure when it's like that's the answer. Medicare.gov. Is it
Okay.
covered?
All right. Any other questions somebody have that they want to throw out there?
I have one. Urgent care,
Uh-huh.
is it part of the outpatient?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
And I have a follow-up on durable medical equipment.
Okay.
So two things. Does it change from year to year depending on what Medicare does and does not cover?
You mean like if like a walker would be covered this year but not next year because they're deciding not to cover it?
Yeah, yeah.
I would expect that Medicare can make changes and adjustments. Most plans do and can change the amount that they pay towards an item or whether they're going to cover it at all. I doubt they would ever not cover a walker as long as it was determined medically necessary, but yes, they could.
Karen, what we see with that most often is something becomes outdated and something replaces it, like insulin pumps or things like or CPAP machines. It's generally not the old one that falls off, but the new one gets added to it.
Okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense? Like
Yeah.
as there's developments in the market.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
sometimes it's a little slow with the new ones being added, that there's new
Very
technology,
original,
but
yeah.
it's not being covered yet.
Right.
Okay. All right. That does it.
Yes, Annette, go ahead.
Yeah, basically, and all the time I've been doing this, I've often used Medicare.gov to find out if something's covered. But it will vary the amount, and yet oftentimes you'll have to go to the appropriate vendor because of all the different fraud issues that have occurred over time. And another way that you might look, and at least in my area, it works very effectively, is we have a lot of goods available through various nonprofits that have medical closets, and they're often available at no cost to borrow. They only want to, they'll ask to have it back, and we have a lot of clients to get it that way, and they can get it quicker without having to go through all the vetting that has to happen for Medicare to cover some of the stuff.
That's a good resource. Good to know. Good option for people. Okay. Any other questions, comments, things about Part B you would like to discuss? Okay, going once, going twice. I'm going to turn the page. All right, we're going to Medicare Part D, and I believe, Noreen, that's you. We can't hear you. Oh, she stole it from me again. I forget to unshare, so she just steals things.
I do. I steal them all the time. I just delegate authority. Or take it. I just take it. I
Just
command
take
it.
it.
Just command it. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm almost there. There we go. Wait a minute. It didn't. I'm so sorry. It didn't go from current screen. It's one of those days. It helps to click the right button, right? If I want it to go from the current slide, I shouldn't tell it to start from the beginning. An operator error kind of day.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. You're all seeing it now, right?
We see the whole slide, not just the slide. Or we see the whole, we see the notes, the next
Are you
slide.
seeing the presentation?
Yes.
That's weird. Okay, so let's try this again. Are you seeing the whole slide now?
There you go.
The part you want us to see. Yep.
Yep, thank you. Sorry about that. Alrighty. So let's talk about Medicare Part D. Part D is prescription drug coverage. And it can be part of original Medicare. It's part of a standalone Part D plan. That's a separate plan that we look at on the plan finder, or it can be part of a Medicare Advantage plan. Our knowledge outcomes for this section, we're hoping you'll recognize that Medicare Part D is outpatient prescription drug coverage, and it's complex. It's offered through private companies that contract with Medicare. That beneficiaries may elect Part D coverage through either the original Medicare or Medicare Advantage system, just as I just said. And beneficiaries don't need Part D coverage if they have other creditable coverage. So there are other coverages that can stand in as a replacement for Part D that count, and it's not counted against people for having those. We're also hoping that you'll be able to recognize that Medicare Part D premiums vary based on on a number of factors. That Part D covered drugs and beneficiary cost sharing depend upon many factors. There's several different things that combine into it. And then the Medicare Plan Finder tool is our resource for helping with research options, and we can also use that to enroll people in coverage. Our skills and abilities outcomes that we're hoping for is that you'll be able to kind of define your own approach to prescription drug coverage, for a Medicare health plan, in a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan, or as a standalone Part D plan, or as other creditable coverage. So we're kind of hoping you'll start kind of finding your way that you're going to talk or explain this, and help a client know whether they may have a surcharge or be eligible for financial assistance for Part D. Okay, we're not going to really talk too much about the financial assistance part of it today, because quite frankly, we don't have time to do it, and it just becomes a little bit too in depth. So we're probably going to talk. We're going to be talking more about that in kind of the next steps, which we call scenario practice. We'll touch on it tomorrow. We'll touch on the financial assistant element of it tomorrow more, but we'll talk about just how it's integrated today. And then we're hoping that you'll be able to explain to a client how to compare their coverage options for Medicare Part D using the Medicare Plan Finder tool at the Medicare website. Okay. So Medicare Part D is prescription drug coverage that's provided through standalone Medicare prescription drug plans. They're called PDPs on the Medicare website, or Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans. And you'll see those referred to as MAPD plans in some of the Medicare information. Part D is prescription drug coverage is for ongoing treatment. Prescription medications that are purchased from pharmacies. The premiums for Part D coverage vary by the coverage that's offered. Oftentimes, not always. Please now remember, like the thing yesterday of sometimes, but, except when. And there's another thing that about Medicare, that a little saying that the answer is generally sometimes, maybe, or it depends. That's like the most common answer for Medicare, right? So, but the premiums for Part D coverage vary. They go from $0 to over $110 a month. That's how much they vary, okay? Generally, when we have a higher premium, it means a smaller deductible and smaller copays, okay? It's kind of like car insurance, right? We pay more to have a $0 deductible than we do to pay to have a $1,000 deductible for our collision coverage on our car insurance. Same thing, it's insurance. So in a general manner, it's not always true, but in a general manner it is, okay? The premiums may be reduced by low-income assistance called extra help, or it can be increased for high-income clients by a surcharge that's called IRMA. It's an income-related monthly adjustment account. The coverage that's offered by plans varies. Plans have formularies or lists of medications that they cover, and they need to cover some of every type of medication, but not all of every type. This means that there are medications that plans don't cover. And then in 2025, we started having no coverage gap for Medicare drug coverage. You might have heard that there was a donut hole
Hey,
or coverage.
Noreen,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I don't think your slides are progressing.
No, it's all on this slide.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. Never
It's all
mind.
right. I know that's one of the things. So new in 2025, there's no more coverage gap or donut hole. And then there's a $2,000 maximum out of pocket. That means that medications covered by the plans are applied to a $2,000 maximum out of pocket. And once a person hits that, it stops. The cost to clients vary by coverage phase and the prescription and pharmacy choices. If a plan has a deductible and it applies to the medication, the cost will be higher and could be quite high until the deductible is paid. Sorry, I have my hand recognition on. I don't think I'm awesome. I don't thumbs up myself. But I talk with my hands. So you'll see my thumb go up sometimes at myself, but it's really just me talking with my hands, okay? So the cost to the clients varies by the coverage phase, and the prescriptions that they choose and the pharmacy choice. If a plan has a deductible and it applies to medication, the cost is going to be higher. Just like, let's go back to our car insurance. If we have a $500 deductible, we have to pay that before we get the collision coverage, right? And it's the same. The cost is going to be higher when the deductible is applying, but once it's been applied, then it's going to shift into lower copays. And then there's preferred versus in-network coverage, mail order, and out-of-network. So you'll see different statuses for pharmacies, and when they're out-of-network, insurance is not accepted. All right, so let's move on. Sorry. Part D is part of both systems of Medicare. It's part of the original Medicare system and the Medicare Advantage. A standalone Part D for original Medicare has 12 options this year. It's the same plans anywhere in the state. Okay, so when we're looking at standalone plans, no matter where we are, we're going to get the same results if we're using the same pharmacies like Walmart or Walgreens or, you know, those nationwide pharmacy networks, those franchise pharmacy networks, because it's the same coverage for the whole state. Medicare Advantage plans vary, the availability depends on the county of residence. So those will vary depending on where a person lives. Okay. Sorry, I was just checking the chat. And thank you, Kendra, for thumbs upping me, even though I do it myself. All right. So SHIBA counselors help clients with their Part D coverage as standalone plans or part of a Medicare Advantage plan when they're getting the coverage through the public commercial market. In other words, they're not getting it through employer benefits, or they're not getting it as part of a Medicaid plan, because we have those 3 different markets that we talked about yesterday, right? And so these are on the public commercial market. We do this by using the Medicare Plan Finder, which is a tool that's available to the public on Medicare.gov. The best way to learn Medicare Part D is to practice on the Plan Finder. You can do this anytime from the comfort of your own home. You're also going to get training and opportunities to practice using the Plan Finder for counseling and subsequent training. There's also a video showing key Plan Finder information on My SHIBA that you can use. And that was done for this year. So you can see how a whole year looks if you look at that video. So let's talk about eligibility and enrollment for Medicare Part D. People must be a U.S. citizen and lawfully present in the U.S. That means if someone is an expat, that they're a U.S. citizen, but they're living abroad for a while, they're not going to have a Part D coverage. They're not eligible for Part D coverage at that time. Okay. They must have residency in the plan service area. So for the Part D, the standalone Part D plans, that's the state of Washington. For the Medicare Advantage plans, it's the county in which that plan is covering. They must agree to the plan's terms, and they must enroll in the plan during a valid enrollment period. The Medicare Part D initial enrollment period is like the IEP for Medicare Part B. It's the same, that 7-month period that we talked about yesterday, that you can sign up for a plan the 3 months before the birthday month, and it will start on the 1st of the birthday month with Medicare, right? Or if someone is waiting until after their birthday month to sign up, they can sign up in they have those 3 months after or during their birthday month. It's that same whole 7-month period. The exception to that is if a person was not able to enroll because they were living out of the country, for example. Then they would get a different enrollment when they get home, when they get back in the US. Creditable coverage for Medicare is coverage that's as good as Medicare Part D. It might be from people who continue to work, have current employer insurance, or if their spouse is working and they're choosing to continue to be covered by the spouse's work insurance, then that is creditable coverage for when they do decide to go on to Medicare. Union plans, there's VA benefits. If a person is using the VA pharmacy, that is considered creditable for Part D. It's not a replacement for Part B, to use VA medical services, but it is for Part D considered accreditable coverage. And then TRICARE, Indian Health Services, there's a few more. COBRA is just like that VA coverage, where it doesn't count for the medical coverage for the Part B, but it does count for Part D. So Part D enrollment is optional, but a person may pay a penalty if they do not enroll when they're first eligible and do not have creditable coverage for the entire period that they could have had Medicare Part D coverage. So let's talk about that just for a few minutes, okay? So if someone is turning 65 and they don't have any other insurance, which is our case, right? And they're starting Medicare when they're turning 65. That's the persona from our rules of engagement, right? Is that they're starting Medicare when they turn 65. If they decided, and some people will do this, especially if they don't have the brilliant guidance of a SHIBA counselor, they will decide, I don't take any medications, so I'm not going to get prescription drug coverage. Okay. But then let's say when they turn 67, they've had some issues, and they've had Medicare for 2 years, and they decide that they're going to go on, or they're going to get their prescription drug coverage 2 years later. Okay. 2 years after they've started Medicare. Now they've had Medicare for 2 years. They could have had the prescription drug coverage for those 2 years, right? They're going to have a penalty for having gone those 2 years without coverage. It's a monthly penalty that's based on a national average premium. And Social Security calculates that. We don't, but just as a general ballpark idea, it's about 30, it runs between about 33 and 34 cents a month most years, which comes up to about $4 a year for going without that coverage. So that person is probably going to have an $8 penalty added to their monthly premium each month. Forever and ever, amen. So that if they had it, let's say there's 0 premium drug plans. So a person can have a drug plan for no cost to them, right? It's 0 premium. If they had a penalty for going without coverage for 2 years, and let's just say that their penalty assessed by Social Security was $8, they would have to pay the drug company $8 a month for their plan, okay? Because they're having to pay that penalty. And that's true for people with Medicare Advantage plans or with standalone Part D plans. So we have, James, do you think did I answer your question about the significance of being creditable? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw the slide as soon as I finished typing.
Okay. The idea of the penalty is it's to discourage people from going without coverage. People incur great costs sometimes for going without coverage. I'm going to tell a story really quick. We don't have much time, honestly, in this format of training for stories, but I have to tell you one. I had a client who he and his wife were they lived, and I worked for Idaho before I came to Washington, and I just came across the border. I'm in Spokane, so I worked in Coeur d'Alene, and we had some clients who they would go down to Arizona for the winter, and their drug coverage didn't renew for the next year, so they needed to get a new plan, and that was all. The open enrollment was happening when they were getting ready to go to Arizona, and so they forgot to take care of it, and then they just kind of chose not to at the end, because they figured, well, we don't really use it, and so we're not going to, we'll worry about it next year or something. Anyway, it slipped through the cracks, whatever cracks were there. So and these were people of some means, so they didn't qualify for any assistance that would help them get started mid-year and things like that. So in June, the husband had a heart attack, and he had expensive medications from recovering, for recovery from the heart attack, including blood thinners that he had to stay on. They were in my office October 15th, the opening day of open enrollment, and they made their appointment like really early in September to come in, and we're in my office on October 15th to get their drug coverage because they had incurred $12,000 of drug costs out of pocket because they didn't have that drug coverage. And that's what can happen to people. They can't necessarily start anytime. Okay. Actually, only people who qualify for financial assistance can start a drug plan anytime, newly qualify. So very few people can start mid-year unless they're just starting Medicare or they've changed or they have another special enrollment. And so it's really important that people start when they can. And if they don't, they get the penalty and they have to wait. Do you have any questions about that? Linda?
I don't have a question, but I have another comment about the purpose for the penalty or why, because the Medicare, they base their premiums or how they fix the prices that insurance companies do on the amount of people that enroll. So they expect that, it's kind of a risk. Insurance does that. So they expect that we're going to collect this much premium and we're going to have to pay out this, right? So what happens is if people don't sign up and they're not collecting that premium. I mean, yes, we have some $0 plans, but there's other plans that people pay for, right? So it's this calculation. So if people aren't enrolling like they're supposed to, then it skews the numbers. So when they're trying to figure out how much to charge or how many people are we going to have to cover, what drugs should we cover, it screws up the math. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That all insurance kind of works that way, right? It's based on health insurance is based on the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
And they're counting on people needing less coverage being part of that pool. So
Exactly.
starting right off, because 65-year-olds as a whole tend to need less medication-wise than a bunch of 85-year-olds, right?
So they want you to pay while you're not using it, not just wait to buy it when you actually need it.
So Ben asked, are most Part D plan premiums free, or how would a typical premium compare to the penalty for late enrollment? There are 3 zero premium plans. There's 12 plans total, and there's the 3 zero premium plans, and then the premiums for the other ones vary between, I think it's $11 and up to over $110. Like 110 and change, I believe. So there's a wide, and if we have time today, we'll go look at the Medicare Plan Finder, and we'll make all this a little bit more concrete for you, okay? And we're not just kind of talking in these abstract terms. All right. So people get enrolled in Medicare Part D plans by calling us, and our counselors help them, like you. This is one of the things that we do a lot of work in open enrollment, because open enrollment is about reviewing your Part D coverage for next year and finding the plan that's going to work best for a person. So that's what our clients are coming to us for, or where the reviews for us generally tend to start for open enrollment. Medicare.gov Plan Finder. People can use this themselves. It's a pretty user-friendly tool, and it's exactly what we use to do counseling. They can contact the companies. These are commercial plans, meaning that they're all issued by insurance companies, and they can contact the company directly. There's a list of them in the Medicare and You book and things like that. They can call 1-800-MEDICARE and get enrolled. And the reason that I want to just mention that a little bit is because 1-800-MEDICARE, sometimes we can't help people. We're not going to be available, or if they're calling the day before open enrollment ends, we may not be able to get back to them, right? Or we might be busy. Or if open enrollment ends on a Saturday or things like that, then they can call 1-800-MEDICARE and get this help. And it's totally acceptable to refer someone to 1-800-MEDICARE for help if you're not going to be available, or if someone is not in your organization is not. You might hear that from your volunteer coordinator. They'll tell you what to do, and they'll work with you on what to do in those cases. But people can call 1-800-MEDICARE. And then insurance agents also sell they sell Medicare Part D plans. They would be some of the ones that do it. They're working from a book that they might work for some companies and not others. So they're going to set people up with what they have available of what they sell. Annette.
Yeah, a couple comments. One, I would encourage people to either call Medicare or do Medicare.gov or contact SHIBA. Those are the three most reliable. We've had problems with insurance agents here either not wanting to do medical plans because drug plans because they don't get a commission, or focusing only on one or two plans where the premiums are higher and the client does not need the level of coverage that the plan has. We've also had a problem with one company we filed a complaint with a couple times that when you call them, the client wanted the low cost plan because that was met their needs. The agent tried to sell them a more expensive plan. So you've got to be careful as to how you're helping people with this. I think the most important thing a volunteer can do is become very familiar with the plan finder and how to use it. The other thing I would say with people is that Medicare during open enrollment, except for Thanksgiving Day, is a 24/7 outfit. And I have a lot of clients who call 9, 10 o'clock at night and get in very quickly and get good results.
Yeah. We have a benefit too, being on the West Coast, that the East Coast is asleep by the time we're just finishing up dinner and still ready to talk to people, right? So
This is Sharon. I just wanted to share my experience. When I signed up for Part D last fall, I believe it was September, October, I first went to Medicare.gov and looked there, and then an insurance agent called me and recommended something that was on Medicare.gov, but the information was actually incorrect. And the plan that the insurance agent recommended and was on Medicare.gov was actually not offered in Clark County where I live. So you can't always count on Medicare.gov being up to date. What I actually found the most helpful was if you go onto the Washington Insurance Commissioner's site, they have they have a couple excellent charts and diagrams with the exact information of different plans offered in Washington State. And that was really helpful to me.
yeah, and that can be as long as if you're not concerned about specific drug coverage, to use the list can be fine. If you're not worried about specific for people who don't take medications, or being able to use specific pharmacies.
Right.
Yeah, but and we'll look at that more clearly when we go to the plan finder later. But yeah, that's very real. The information that's submitted to Medicare for the Medicare plan finder is submitted before July 1st. And sometimes there's some changes that take place, and medication costs can be changed and things like that. So we just have to do the best with what we have available and the tools that we have.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that whatever the insurance commissioner was using, they really had the most update, SHIBA and the insurance company. I mean, the insurance commissioner had the most up-to-date information.
Linda and I and Shannon, we all work for the office of the insurance commissioner. That's where we're based out of. So, all right. So let's talk about the covered benefits and costs. The Medicare website has a great resource on the costs. And so when you have prescription drug coverage, you have a premium, you might have a yearly deductible up to $590. And then once the deductible is paid, if it must be paid, then there's going to be co-payments. But there's some drugs that the deductible won't apply to. There's some simple generics. And we can see that on the Medicare Plan Finder very clearly. So I've been using car insurance as an equivalency, right? And the way to think of the deductible for the Medicare Part D is the way, like, we have a collision deductible. on our car insurance, right? That if we are driving around and we have a hailstorm and that damages our car, that's our comprehensive, that's going to cover that. Our collision deductible is still out there waiting, right? And as we're driving around, even we're just all fine and dandy and we're putting gas in our car and oil in our car and we're paying our premiums for our insurance. But the collision deductible is waiting till we actually collide, right, with someone and have a collision. We have that accident. And this is the same way. The deductible on Medicare coverage is for certain medications, and it doesn't, most people never pay their deductible. A vast majority, it's something like over 60%, I shouldn't say a vast majority, but something like 60% of the people on Medicare never meet their deductible during a year. Okay, because it doesn't apply to the low cost generics that most people take. It tends to apply to high tier generics or brand name drugs like the blood thinners and things like that. The costs are different if you get extra help, if you get financial assistance. It pays those premiums up to a certain amount. It eliminates the deductibles and it lowers the co-payments. Okay. So there's the website has all sorts of good information on that, and the link is in your information that you have. And it also talks about what Medicare Part D plans covered. We talked about when we were going through, when I was reading on the first screen that had all that information without much graphics on it, that there's a list of prescription drugs. That's a formulary. So Medicare drug plans don't have to cover every drug that's available. They have to cover some of the drugs that are available in each class. Now there's some exceptions to that, like immunosuppressants that help prevent organ rejection for people who've had transplants, right? Immunosuppressants, Medicare plans cover all of them. Antidepressants, same thing. Antipsychotics, same thing. Because there's some things that you just can't mess with a person's meds and expect that the generic, make people try the generic first or things like that. Okay, and we have generic drugs and tiers of coverage, and that's like different levels, right? We have tier 1 generics. Those are like really super common, the things that half the world takes for high blood pressure and high cholesterol and things like that. And then we have brand name drugs that are a higher tier drugs, or higher tier generics that cost a little bit more, and some of them, cost thousands a month, right? And so it's a tiered system, and we're going to look at that when we're in the plan finder. Okay. So the Medicare Part D premiums are paid to the private insurance companies that contract with Medicare. What's happening, we talked about this being commercial products, right? The companies are contracting with Medicare. So the companies are getting paid, as Linda kind of explained too, the companies are insuring a pool of people. Well, they're getting paid by Medicare to insure each person that they get, that they're providing coverage for. And I'm not honestly sure what the Part D rate was this year, but I know that for Medicare Advantage plans, it was right around about $1,000 a month that the plan got paid for that. And Part D this year, they got they kind of changed how the payment scale works. So they got a flat amount up front that they're expected to manage that amount for the coverage that they're providing. Okay, so they're getting paid by Medicare to manage the drug benefits. Does everyone get that? So that's how there can be zero premium plans, because the company is making, let's just pretend that they're making $100 a month for a person doing nothing, like they're before they get a premium that the person has to pay a premium, they're getting $100 a month. It's really probably more than that, but they're contracting with Medicare and they're getting a payment for it. The premiums can be affected by the market rates, the extra help, and the IRMA. The IRMA is that additional amount that people have to pay if they're high income. And the reason that we have that IRMA is because it has Medicare Part D has a subsidy involved with it. Okay, and so the portion of the subsidy decreases when income goes up. And then Medicare Advantage plans, there can be LIS, which is extra help that helps reduce those costs. There's dual eligible special needs plans, and that's a whole mouthful, right? But there's special Medicare Advantage plans for people with Medicaid benefits, either full or partial Medicaid benefits, and then market rate on those. Okay. So back to our little diagram that we looked at yesterday. We have Medicare, and on original Medicare, they're going to have that standalone plan that they're buying from a company that's going to provide their coverage. And on the Medicare Advantage side, they're getting their drug coverage combined into their Medicare. Okay. So let's talk about the covered benefits and cost sharing. The benefit's going to have three phases. The first is that deductible, and then once the deductible, if it needs to be paid, once it's been paid, then there's initial coverage phase, and then there's catastrophic phase that's when a person has had to pay a maximum of $2,000. And that was a new thing this year for 2025. Part D enrollees, they're doing once they've hit once they've paid a maximum of $2,000 out of pocket, then they enter what's called catastrophic coverage, and they pay no additional out of pocket. Their medications are covered for the rest of the year at no cost to them. Now that's a maximum of out of pocket. When we look in the plan finder later, you're going to see that some of them, the amount that people are having to pay is like $1,200 or things like that. And it's less than $2,000. That's the maximum that they'd have to pay, because there's all sorts of variables, because this is complex, right? And that's just how it is. There's all sorts of variables. And I already said this. We help clients compare their options using the Medicare Plan Finder. That's Part D drugs and Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans. We explain the Part D coverage to them using the Plan Finder as our guide. And we help ensure that their needs, priorities, and preferences are supported in the coverage that they choose. Okay, so, you know, pharmacies, they might have a relationship with a pharmacy. They might not be able to get a lotion covered, but maybe that's a low priority, something like that. Sometimes we help them with choices that they make we try to make it in alignment with what they want. So let's talk about counseling people with Medicare drug coverage. What do you think? What do you feel like you know right now? You probably feel like I don't know what I don't know what I don't know. And that's a common, this is all really abstract when we're just sitting here looking at slides, right? I promise you it gets a lot more concrete when we go into the plan finder and look at the coverage phases and look at all the different premiums and look at the difference that we see with the pharmacies and things like that. But let's just take a few minutes to think about what you feel like you know right now and what you would like to know. And then what you expect to get asked. Okay. Anyone ready to share?
I just had a question. When people come in for a consultation or on the phone, do they generally expect the SHIBA volunteer to do the research for them to and find alternatives for the most efficient and Part D plan, which covers all of their medications? Or do we just say, here it is, go find it yourself?
No, we do it for them.
Okay.
Yep, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're going into the plan finder with them and entering their drugs and getting the results and interpreting them for them.
Okay, great.
Yep. And I saw that there's something in the Q&A, but I can't seem to get back to it. Oh, maybe I did. Never mind. I said that and it happened, right? Someone is signing. So the question in the Q&A is if someone is signing up for original Medicare at age 65, they should also sign up for a free premium Part D. Maybe their choice is going. The choice of a person's drug plan that they're going to make is going to depend on what they take, where they live, what's offered, what the pharmacies are that they like to use, all sorts of variables, and we'll talk about that. If they might sign up for any of those 12 drug plans, not necessarily a zero plan. For people taking medications, especially if they're taking those like if they're taking the high cost medications, like or the medications that do use the deductible, like in our examples, we're going to be using Eliquis. It's a blood thinner. It's a very common blood thinner, which is why I use it. Someone has a heart attack or a stroke, or they're probably gonna go on Eliquis or Brilinta, and it's about the cost on that is about $650 to $700 a month retail. And so we use that when we go into the plan finder to show the deductible and things like that. If someone has that and they're just starting Medicare now, it could be that they're better off paying a higher premium and not having to pay. There's a $590 deductible on a bunch of the plans, and they might be better off paying a higher monthly premium and having lower copays than having that zero premium plan and having to pay the $590 deductible plus the copays for each month. And like I said, that'll get a little bit more concrete when we go look in the plan finder.
And then, but the option could have been what he was meaning was as opposed to getting no drug plan because they don't think they need a drug plan. You could take a zero drug plan, so at least they have one. So you're signing up, at least get a zero premium one, so you have one.
Yep, that's actually that's absolutely one of the things that we try to encourage people to do, because then they have that coverage and they're not going without it. They're eliminating the penalty, and if they do need it, it's out there waiting for them to use it.
And then, Noreen, I missed a question earlier from James when we were talking about Part B, and he had a question about people and their concern about how are they going to pay their 20% copay on a fixed income. And so, James, we're actually going to talk about some different ways for that as we move forward with some of the other portions of this. So if you can hold on to that question, if we don't get it answered throughout the course, we'll talk more specifically about it later on. But I think we'll get some answers for you as we cover other sections.
I just asked that or wrote that question when you asked us to come up with questions you think that a client might come up with. So that's why I wrote that question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, but we'll have some answers for you.
All right. So it is 2:10. We've been sitting for an hour. Let's take a break until 2:20 and come back. Is that enough, or do you guys want 15 minutes? 10 minutes enough?
10 is good.
Okay. We'll come back at 2:20 and go from there. I think Shannon and Rosie will be taking us through Medicare Advantage plans. Annette.
Yeah, I just want to throw out another option. Some of the drugs are not going to be on the plan finder, but they are on single care and they are on GoodRx. These are some of the old drugs. There's also some drugs, depending on what people take, are actually cheaper through GoodRx or single care than they are on their drug plan. So it's a matter of, you may find you want to check those and a couple of the other alternative plans to see what might be the best package.
That can be a little hard for our beginners though, Annette. So we're going to kind of try to keep that advice about outside sources to the scenario practice or other trainings, because that's going a little bit too far. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to be basic.
To help them. We're trying to have them understand how Part D works for right now, and then we'll go into all the nuances.
Okay.
Thank you, though. All right. So let's go on a break until 2:20 and come back and start Medicare Advantage plans.
Hey, looks like we're getting back. I'm gonna attempt to share my screen. Go. All right, so you can see the slide.
We sure
So the
can. Thanks,
Q&A.
Shannon.
Can you see
Before
the,
you,
oh, go ahead.
just before you get started, I had a question for Donna about which area, which county you're in.
I'm in Spokane County.
Oh, okay, great. That's wonderful. And I'm so sorry I missed the very beginning portion of the day, but Donna, have you connected with your local sponsor organization, your SHIBA connection there?
Yes.
And who
Yeah.
have you talked with already?
Monica.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much. I'm like looking at my little roll sheet over here. So
Okay.
thank
By the
you.
way, I
Sorry to
haven't
call you.
gotten my little booklet yet.
Yeah, yeah. Were you able to get a hold of that link and open it on the
Yeah.
computer?
Yes, I do have that.
Good.
So,
Good. Okay,
okay.
good. Well, I'm sorry you're getting it after the fact. We had an administrative assistant who was really, they were just remarkable. And they moved on to our legal affairs team. So we are figuring out how they managed everything they covered. And
Okay.
yeah, they had, I really still don't know how they did it all, but they did. So bear with us this time. We're so glad you're here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome back. Hope you had a nice stretch break and got some something to drink if you wanted something, and ready for talking about Medicare Advantage plans. So this is the program on the Part C that we've been kind of talking about, but not about specifically. Medicare Advantage plans are also called um, Medicare health plans or Medicare plus choice plans. You might hear that, but most people refer to them as Medicare Advantage or Medicare Part C. So for the outcomes for this part of the training, we're hoping that you understand that Medicare Advantage and Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans are a system of care for Medicare covered benefits that beneficiaries can elect. So it's one of those two systems of care that we've talked about. And most Medicare Advantage plans include additional benefits that are not covered in original Medicare. So things like vision, dental, hearing. That's part of what makes them so attractive to people. Also, that most Medicare Advantage plans include prescription drug coverage or Part D as well. And beneficiaries may elect Part D coverage through either original Medicare or the Medicare Advantage system, but cannot mix and match. So when you select a Medicare Advantage plan, if you want drug coverage, you need to make sure that that's included in the Advantage plan that you select. Also, that Medicare Advantage plans are managed care plans that require or incentivize members to use a provider network and comply with other forms of cost controls like prior authorizations. And Medicare Advantage plans have a defined service area requirement for enrollment, and typically that's a county. And then Medicare Advantage coverage is through private insurance companies that contract with the federal government. And these are annual contracts that may or may not be renewed and typically do change from year to year. So it's really important to tell clients to be sure to review their plans at least annually and to make note of any changes that are happening with their current plan to help them decide if they want to stay or they want to make a change. Also, we would like for you to know that the details about covered benefits and limitations require careful reading of the plan documents. We talked about there's an evidence of coverage form, and the reality is that most beneficiaries don't or won't read those documents, and it's absolutely in scope for us to help them do that. And enrolled members receive notices of significant changes, including a document that's called the Annual Notice of Change, or the ANOC, that gets sent out before the Medicare open enrollment period in the fall. When I started this job last summer, and so last fall, I had just been on a couple of months, and we were starting to talk about this ANOC form that was going out to everyone. And I had never seen one before, but one day my mom lives with me, and one day I was sitting in the living room and happened to see her ANOC form on the coffee table. So I grabbed it up and read it, and there were a lot of things. And I asked her, "Did you know this? Did you know this?" Nope, she hadn't read it, and she hadn't planned on reading it. So, and most of our beneficiaries fall into that category. It's just not something that's on their radar, but it is a very important document to read, and you will, your clients will have questions that you will find answers to in these notices. And then the Medicare Plan Finder tool, in addition to helping find out information about those standalone Part D plans, it also helps us research what Advantage plans are offered in a person's county. So we use the Plan Finder to research the Advantage plans as well as the Part D plan. And with that, we have a short list of skills that we're going to practice this afternoon. And number one, of course, we'd like to make sure that you can define your own approach to Medicare Advantage plan coverage, whether or not you selected one with prescription drug coverage, or kind of what led you to select the Advantage plan that you have, if you do in fact have an Advantage plan. And we'd like you to be able to explain to a client that Medicare Advantage plans are different from and exclusive of the original system of Medicare. And we've talked about this, I'll just repeat it again, it's essentially one or the other. We're not able to mix and match between those two systems of care. And finally, we'd like you to be able to explain to a client how to compare their coverage options for Medicare Advantage, which means using the Medicare Plan Finder tool at the Medicare website. And in most cases, this would be supplemented by them having a conversation with their provider office to confirm their research and get any specific questions answered. So you'll do some research on the Plan Finder, you'll find options for the client, and then there may be questions about that specific provider network with that plan. And especially if a client really wants to keep their current provider, we always encourage them to check with their provider, somebody in the business office who is familiar with what insurance plans they accept, just to make sure that that provider is going to be covered with this particular plan. All right, so eligibility and enrollment for Medicare Advantage plans. We talked about this yesterday, and it's the same. You need to meet the condition or the requirements for being eligible for Medicare, which means being a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You have to be enrolled. This is a little bit different. You have to be enrolled in Part A and Part B to select an Advantage plan. So you have to have both those parts to be able to get an Advantage plan. And then you have to reside in the service area or county for the Medicare Advantage plan. And of course, comply with the plan rules, enroll during an applicable enrollment period, and and, just understand what those rules are, complete the enrollment request and submit the enrollment request to the plan. For Medicare Advantage plans, we have the ICEP. That stands for the Initial Coverage Election Period. So this is a little bit different from the IEP that we talked about yesterday. When we were talking about the IEP yesterday, where we were talking about when you are originally eligible to enroll in Medicare. And the ICEP plan is just a little bit different, and it's because you have to have both Part A and Part B that you're electing your coverage through Medicare Advantage, if that makes sense. You won't hear this very often. You'll mostly hear IEP, but it is because you do need to have Part A and Part B to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan. And it is common for many people, some people, to defer Part B, especially if they're working or have access to benefits through a covered spouse, for example. So those folks would not be eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan because they're deferring their Part B. The initial coverage election period always begins 3 months prior to the date the individual has Medicare Part A and Part B for the first time. And in that way, it is exactly like the initial enrollment period, or the IEP. The difference is that it ends on either the last day of the second month after the month in which they are first entitled to Part A and enrolled in Medicare Part B, or the last day of their Part B IEP, whichever is later. So that sounds really complicated and technical, and it is, but it kind of works out in the end because it's going to be whichever comes last, which is going to be typically the last day of the third month after the birthday month, like we talked about yesterday. All right, so since Advantage plans are managed care plans, they are structured as either an HMO or a PPO. HMO stands for Health Maintenance Organization, and PPO is a Preferred Provider Organization. So if a client is enrolling in an Advantage plan and wants drug coverage, they must enroll in an MAPD plan, because they cannot be in a Part C or an Advantage plan and then get a standalone Part D plan. So their Advantage plan must include the Part D coverage, because they can't get it. They can't get a standalone. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll try to explain it a little bit better. So if someone has an Advantage plan without drug coverage and they try to enroll in a standalone Part D plan, they will be disenrolled from their Medicare Advantage plan and put in original Medicare, which may not be what they intended to do. And this is another example of why it's so important to be very clear about what kind of insurance a client already has. So when folks are eligible, how do they enroll? It's exactly the same as enrolling in Medicare or in a Part D. They can enroll online at medicare.gov. They can call 1-800-Medicare. They can call the actual plan that they want to enroll in. They can use the website for the plan they want to enroll in. They can set up a time with a SHIBA counselor to help them enroll, or they can go through a licensed agent or broker. All right, so covered benefits and costs for Advantage plans. This is going to be very difficult to generalize because there are many, many different Medicare Advantage plans, either with or without prescription drug assistance or coverage, and they all have different co-insurances, co-pays. They all have a little bit different coverages. So it is very difficult to generalize because there is a lot of variation, and it takes technology, specifically the Plan Finder tool, to sort this out or to at least get started with it. And so after we're done with the Advantage presentation, we're going to plan to spend some time in the actual Plan Finder tool so you get some exposure to that. So it's also difficult to generalize because the reality is that sometimes an individual insurance company will offer different plans in the same service area, or different plans from one service area to another, or that the cost for services could be different for different plans or from county to county. And as we talked about before, networks and formularies often change during the annual contract negotiation process. So it's just to say it's very difficult to generalize, to say which plan is better or which plan is likely to cost more. It just depends so much on personal circumstance, and the technology is going to help us sort through all of that. Okay, we've seen this slide before. Medicare Advantage is an alternative system of care to the original Medicare program. And it's important for people to understand that it is separate and distinct. There's no crossover here. And although people still receive their Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B covered services and pay their Part B premium, these plans are substantially different in the way that they typically include prescription drug coverage and other benefits like the hearing, vision, and dental that are not part of the original Medicare program. And then we've seen this chart before, and we revisit it again just to show that that the Medicare Advantage plans all contract with the federal government. These are all private companies, and so the hospitals, doctors, and pharmacies all contract with the Advantage plan, and that's how they bill the Advantage plan. They contract with them, and then in return, the Advantage plans contract with the federal Medicare agency. And again, here's another slide we've seen before, and it illustrates that most people do elect other coverage in addition to their Medicare. So about half of everyone who has Medicare in Washington state and everyone who has Medicare around the country are enrolled in Medicare Advantage plans. And some of those do relate to retiree health insurance coverage as well. And then some of the commercial market plans, and some of those are commercial market plans, and some are plans offered through the Medicaid program. So most of these, except for Medigap, can include plans that are Medicare Advantage plans. All right, here's this slide again. 2 systems, 3 markets, 4 parts. So again, it's going to be very important when having a conversation with someone about their particular insurance or their particular Medicare Advantage plan to help them to get oriented into which market they are enrolled in, or which market is the one that's supporting their enrollment in the Medicare Advantage plan. So again, there's a lot of diversity in the Medicare Advantage program beyond just covered services. And Rosie, I am so sorry. I can't remember if you start now or if I go a little bit longer.
No, this is still you.
This is still me. Okay. All right. So let's talk about what it's going to cost when you choose a Medicare Advantage plan, starting with the beneficiary premium. It's often the case that people don't understand that they have a Medicare Part B premium in addition to any premiums that the Medicare Advantage plan charges. So if you hear something on TV, a commercial or something, it happens all the time when people read or hear that they can get a Medicare Advantage plan for a $0 monthly premium. They kind of skip past the idea that that does not mean they do not have to pay their Medicare Part B premium, that $185 a month. So that $185 a month applies to everyone who has Medicare Part B, whether it's through original Medicare or through a Medicare Advantage plan. They always have to pay for that. And some Medicare Advantage plans do have a $0 premium. And then at the other end of that scale, they can go up upwards of $300 a month for Advantage plans. So it does vary, but at any rate, no matter what, they still are going to be responsible for that $185 a month if they do not meet the low income requirements for assistance. So for today, we're going to focus on Medicare Advantage plans that are available in the commercial market. We actually will return to talk about Advantage plans for beneficiaries who have Medicaid or Medicare Advantage plans for people who enroll into retiree health insurance programs. But today we're just going to focus on those that are available in the commercial market. And that the commercial market are those plans that are in the Plan Finder tool available to all Medicare Advantage beneficiaries. So as we said, that almost everything about Medicare Advantage plans varies, including the cost of the plans. Again, there are subsidies for people who have a lower income, and by virtue of qualifying for those subsidies, the beneficiaries also have modified or enhanced plan designs, which means that they have access to more benefits at less cost. And we're talking here about people who have Medicaid and Medicare. And in the last part of tomorrow's program, we'll talk more about those, have a whole presentation on that, and you'll hear us refer to these folks as dual eligible people. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rosie, who will take us through covered benefits and cost sharing.
Hi, before we get going on that, and I'm again sorry to interrupt, I did want to welcome our Globo transcriber, Amy. We had made an error on our side, and we sent over the wrong link. So again, we're so sorry, but I did want to say welcome. And from the point that Amy joined us, we will be able to have that transcription link and she will share it in the chat. So thank you so much. And I'm sorry, Rosie, go for it.
No problem. All right, thanks, Shannon. This is a little bit of a lengthy section, so we're covering it together. Now we'll go over covered benefits and cost sharing. All right, so Medicare Advantage plans are, like Shannon said, sold by private insurance companies. These private insurance companies contract with Medicare on an annual basis. And every year there's an assessment that's made to determine whether they're going to renew the contract or not. So it's not uncommon, as it's been mentioned before, to see plan changes year over year if contracts are renewed or these plans have a service area requirement. So you have to live within the service area in order to select that particular plan. And like was mentioned a bit earlier, similar to Medicare Part D plans, the service area is usually, well, actually, I don't know if it was mentioned this time, but the service area can sometimes be state, as big as a state, but for Advantage plans, the service area could be as small as a county. So the zip code becomes important in this situation or when reviewing plans for Medicare Advantage plans. If a person needs a specific medical service, they can get a coverage determination letter from their plan before they get the service. So that one, they can find out if the service is covered, and then two, to be able to get an estimate of the cost or what the cost might be for that particular service. So encouraging clients to reach out to their plan before they get before any anticipated service is always a good idea. All right, so I think this kind of might be a bit of a review, but just to reiterate, Medicare Advantage plans are managed care plans owned by private insurance companies. So they generally offer more benefits than original Medicare. So Medicare pays a private plan to provide the services. Most Advantage plans include additional benefits that aren't covered or not covered. Well, let me back up a little bit. So additional benefits not covered under the plan. So that sometimes might be dental or vision, but some of them do include that. So actually many of them include additional benefits. So that's one of the reasons why many people choose Advantage plans. For those added covered benefits. So an Advantage plan must provide the same covered benefits as original Medicare. So it must consist of parts A and B. However, the rules for part A and B benefits can vary. The client is responsible for, or excuse me, the beneficiary is responsible for the Part B premium and may also pay a plan premium as well. Medicare Advantage plans have an annual maximum out-of-pocket limit to protect clients from catastrophic health costs. And most of these care plans include a Part D coverage. Like we've mentioned before, there are some Advantage plans that don't have Part D coverage, so it's important to identify plans that do have the Part D coverage if that is what a beneficiary needs. So Part D coverage is based on pharmacies, the drugs, the prices, and deductibles, and all of this will vary from plan to plan. All right, and when meeting with the client, it's a good idea to ask whether they're receiving any kind of financial assistance. It's probably one of the first questions, or probably one of the first questions. It's an important question that should be asked. Because it's really going to have an impact on what the options will look like for that individual. So if you're using the plan finder, which you most commonly will be using, you will come across this page that you see on the screen here. It's a screenshot. And like we mentioned earlier, we'll have some time after this portion to actually get into the plan finder. So I think you'll find it very helpful. But you'll see that we'll come across this screen here. This is important because this is where you can indicate whether the client is receiving any form of assistance. And so they're listed here on the screen. So Medicaid, supplemental security income, Medicare savings program, or extra help. So you would indicate that option here. Or not that option, but you would indicate whether they're receiving any sort of help. Because again, by entering whether someone is receiving financial assistance into the plan finder will generate more accurate result. Because that it'll be different plans and different benefit options for people who qualify for some form of financial assistance than there will be for individuals who don't qualify for any kind of assistance. This also means that the cost share, premiums, deductibles, and copays can be different for beneficiaries as well. If a person is not receiving assistance, then it is helpful to follow with a couple of income screening questions to help determine whether it's worth encouraging the individual to apply for an assistance program. And as volunteer advisors, we can also help with that as well if they decide to apply. All right. Any questions so far? Now we're going to transition over to the different kinds of Medicare Advantage plans. All right. So there are 5 different kinds. Medicare charters the 5 different kinds of Medicare Advantage plans, but in Washington State, we only have 3 kinds, which are the health maintenance organizations, or HMOs, preferred provider organizations, or PPOs, and then the special needs plan. First, we'll briefly talk about the different types of plans in Washington. Like I mentioned a second ago, we have PPO, HMO, and special needs plan. Enrollment in a special needs plan is limited, and most common special need plans that you're going to encounter in your work as a volunteer advisor are those that we refer to as DSNPs, or dual eligible special need plans. So DSNPs are for people who have both Medicare and Medicaid. We refer to these individuals as dual eligible clients, or dual eligible beneficiaries. You'll learn more about dual eligibility and coverage later in the training, and then more thoroughly in future training and learning opportunities as well. Finally, provider contracts with Advantage plans are very important because they determine which services will be covered as in-network or out-of-network. So it's important for beneficiaries to be aware whether services they need will be covered in-network or out-of-network. This can be done by reviewing the plan contract to verify what the plan requires in terms of things like prior authorizations or referrals for specialty care. And that can also be verified in the plan finder as we go through the examples as well. So beneficiaries can also talk with the plans directly or speak with their provider's office. Like I mentioned a bit ago, if there's an anticipated service or procedure that's going to be done, they can talk with their provider office ahead of time. All right, so now we'll talk about each of the common types of plans. We'll start with the HMOs. And then there's a link to the Medicare.gov website that you can use to read more on what an HMO is and a review of the features. I'll post a link in the chat for you in just a moment. You can take a look for yourself. But in general, an HMO plan is the most restrictive kind of plan because it generally, a person has to use a provider within the network or they're going to need a referral. Otherwise, their services won't be covered, except, of course, in an emergency situation. So in an emergency situation, care is covered, even if the hospital or out-of-area urgent care or dialysis center are out of network. So in emergency situations, a person is typically covered at in-network rates and shouldn't be charged more than what their cost-sharing amount. Next, we have HMO POS, or point of service plans, which are the less well-known and less common plan. An HMO POS plan is a bit of a hybrid because it combines the features of both HMOs and PPOs. So in some cases, beneficiaries can see doctors or use other kinds of healthcare providers outside the network, but at a much higher cost. So really, only if a person is willing to pay more for a service, and this would be something that they might look into depending on their service, their needs as well. So when working with a client who has a preferred provider and they're wanting to change plans, it's a good idea to encourage them to verify whether the provider that they're wanting to get care from or wanting to continue to get care from is a part of the network that they're looking in for the plan that they're looking at going into. And then finally, there's the PPO. And again, I have a link for this one as well. It's here on the slide, and I'll put it in the chat in a moment. So PPOs are networks that consist of doctors or healthcare providers and hospitals. Generally, a beneficiary will pay less if they go to the providers and facilities that belong to the plan's network. But beneficiaries do have the flexibility of going to out-of-network providers for covered services, but they usually end up paying a little bit more. It's similar to HMO POS in terms of like flexibility to be able to seek care in and out of network. But an HMO POS plan will typically require that a beneficiary have a primary care provider, and will also require referrals for specialty services, whereas the PPO won't. In general, a PPO plan is the most lenient compared to an HMO or an HMO POS. So really, I think if we think about it, I think the plans are mostly distinguished by the in-network versus or the network of providers that they're connected with. Any questions so far? All right, I think you guys are excited to get into the plan finder. All right. A feature of all Medicare Advantage plans is that there is a maximum out-of-pocket limit for costs and covered care. There's often one limit for medical care and another limit for prescription drugs. But if someone receives non-covered services or it will not be included in the accumulation of the maximum out-of-pocket limit. So in other words, if a service is not covered by the plan, it won't count towards the annual maximum out-of-pocket limit. So the service has to be covered by the plan for it to count towards that maximum out-of-pocket limit. All right, and this is a screenshot. I believe it's from the Aetna website, one of the many insurance companies that are out there. And really, the focus on this slide is just to take a moment to highlight the evidence of coverage document. In addition to the annual notice of change document, this is also an important document that we encourage you and your clients to use and familiarize yourself with. As you can see on here, there are a variety of documents that beneficiaries will often receive or have accessible to them. But it's my understanding that the EOC, the evidence of coverage, provides more benefit details and is generally clearer to understand. So that might be up to whoever's reading it to make that determination. But all in all, I think it's important to make sure to review all documents that are received in regards to Medicare. So it's important to review those. That way individuals are able to be aware of any changes or information that is important to their plan. All right. So like I mentioned earlier, one of the aspects of commercial market Medicare Advantage plans is that they run on annual contracts, which means that it's not uncommon for changes to occur. In Washington State, there were quite a few plans that had changes last fall or were changing their covered service areas. And so many individuals received notification letters last fall, so that their plans would be changing or discontinuing at the start of the new year. This is so I guess just that's a little bit of history for those who are new, and then those who are familiar, who have been around. Like I know Annette has been around, so she's familiar with that has happened. But as you begin your work as a SHIBA advisor, You'll learn that there are, will be times when clients reach out to you because they've received a letter like the ones that were received in the fall, indicating that maybe their plan is leaving. So generally, if someone receives a notice that their plan is leaving, it'll generally be due to either the plan is leaving the state, or just their service area, or that they're making changes to fewer or different options. So again, just stressing the importance of reading, or at least just keeping all plan material or plan mail that is sent and received by beneficiaries, so that if something like this does happen to someone, it'll make it easier for a counselor to be able to provide assistance interpreting the notice, and then what that means for the beneficiary who'll be losing or experiencing changes in coverage in the coming year. Or all right, so now I'll open up the floor here. So we'll does anybody is anyone willing to share whether they or someone they know has a Medicare Advantage plan? I think a few mentioned that they had a Medicare Advantage plan yesterday. But is anyone willing to share a little bit about their experience? Do you have a Medicare Advantage plan that also includes the Part D? So just interested in hearing from anyone who's willing to share why or how you chose the plan, whether it's related to retiree coverage or commercial market plan, just how it's working for you. Love to hear from individuals.
Hi, this is Norma.
Hi, Norma.
I'll do it for a minute. I do have a Medicare Advantage plan now. Yes, it is an MAPD plan. It is related to the commercial market. Why did I choose it? When I was employed, we insured group insurance coverage through Kaiser. And the person, I believe a broker, came around to a group gathering in the community. And I talked to her about Kaiser. I pay $0 per month. It has the whole, like I said, the prescription stuff. As far as have I experienced any changes? Not a single thing, because I did Kaiser when I was working, and I am Kaiser now. So doctors didn't change, nothing changed. So definitely not a bad experience so far.
Oh, good. I'm glad you have a pleasant experience so far.
Amen.
And that you haven't had any changes. I mean, yeah, it doesn't happen often. So it's nice to have that consistency for sure. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Yeah. This is Hope. I am on a MAPD plan. I chose it because I ranked what was most important to me, and that was my primary care provider. And I also wanted to make sure I had dental and hearing available. So I just went through the process of determining who had my PCP and what my prescription copays would be, which is $0 because I'm on generic, and the dental, and I wanted $0 premium since I'm already paying the $185. So that's the process I use, what's most important to me, and I would suspect I will use that when talking with clients about what's most important to them, and then trying to find the most cost-effective way of still giving them all the things that they need. I didn't care if I changed my dentist, and I didn't care about hearing so much, except for I wanted the benefit, but my PCP was important. I did have to make a change in December, since the plan that I was on is no longer in the county. And so I had to make a change. Wasn't really happy about that, but I still went off the same process of what was most important to me, and got an equal plan to what I had before, and didn't have to change anything, didn't have to change providers or dentists. It all stayed the same. So,
Wonderful. How did
yeah.
you find the plan?
Pardon me?
How did you find the plan? Did
Oh,
you
I
go
went on
online?
Medicare.gov
Okay.
and did
Did
my
you plan
comparisons that
finder?
way. Pardon?
Did you use the plan finder or you just went onto
No,
Medicare?
the plan finder. I used the plan finder. And
Okay.
it's kind of a pain in the patootie if you really want to know about trying to look at everything because I kind of want to compare it all at once. So I ended up creating on paper, this, this is the cost for this plan. This is the cost. Do they have dental? Do they have this? Rather than trying to do it online, it was kind of a pain to do it that way. And visually for me, it was easier to put it on paper and then compare apples to apples side by side that way.
Right. I'm very visual as well. So yes, there's a lot of benefits and factors to take into consideration when just making a decision on which plan to go with, because there really are, it's really based on your needs and your preferences. So yeah, lots to compare for sure. And we'll see that soon. Well, thanks so much for sharing. Anyone else?
This is Don. I had a little different experience. I began my retirement on Kaiser, a Medicare Advantage plan, because I was on Kaiser before I retired. I was buying my own insurance. The Medicare Advantage I felt was cumbersome. It's a lot of it, I think, has to do with being in Skagit County, which is a long way from the big metropolitan area. There were a lot of times I had to go out of the network to get the care I wanted. And the co-payments drove me nuts. Every time I turned around, I was having to make another co-payment or get a referral to go to a specialist. So I ended up going, it was quite a process to get to a Medicare supplement plan from a Medicare Advantage, but I managed to do that. And I'm much happier with the supplement because I know what my cost is going to be. I have my monthly premium, and there's no copays, and there's no referrals required or things like that. So,
Okay, so it sounds like you switched back over to original Medicare and got a Medicare supplement plan as well.
yes, I did.
Okay, yeah.
And that was not easy, I gotta say. Because if I think it's within the first year, you can do so without penalty, but I had been on the Medicare Advantage for a couple of years, so I had to find a Medigap policy that would take me with my pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, and Linda will cover all about Medigaps tomorrow. So,
Okay.
But yeah, you're absolutely right.
We've heard. So thank you so much for sharing. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say you're absolutely right. Getting a Medigap plan is easy at the beginning because you don't have to worry about pre-existing conditions or anything. But Linda will talk tomorrow all about guaranteed issue rates and how those work. But glad you were able to get one, Dawn.
Making it tricky in those rural areas or in areas where there aren't as many options. So
I gotta say that it was SHIBA that counseled me to manage that change. So
oh, good, excellent.
Well,
I have to say that, your comment about difficulty in rural areas, my mom lived in Squim and she had no choice but have traditional Medicare and pay for a supplemental, which cost her more than she should have had to pay. But she had no choices because the rural areas are really don't have the advantage that some metropolitan areas have the Medicare Advantage plans to be able to choose and give more choice.
right.
Whereas some of our seniors in rural areas just don't have any choices.
On the other hand, your copays can easily add up to the cost of a premium.
True, both true.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, I grew up in Forks, so not too far. Well, I guess not too far. I mean, far enough, but yeah, definitely understand for sure. And how my parents or how you know you knew of adults who had to travel at least to Port Angeles, if not further, to get any type of service, and that would be even maybe even just going to an eye doctor. So yeah, definitely understand. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. Those were great examples and great experiences. Thank you. Um, let's see. So today we've touched on enrollment periods for a Medicare Advantage plan at age 65, the types of Medicare Advantage plans that are available, and the idea that there are different ways to enroll in a plan, including using online tools like the Medicare Plan Finder that we'll explore in just a bit. Um, and then later on, so basic training, we're trying to give you the basic fundamentals as you'll build upon in your journey as a SHIBA advisor. So in later discussion and programming, you'll learn more about things like special enrollment periods and when those come into play, like for people who receive a discontinued letter from their plans last fall. You'll also learn about other markets like employer group health plans, so individuals who are in an Advantage plan with through retirement through their as a retiree, and Medicaid switching plans, as well as how to process compliance, grievances, and appeals. So lots more conversations to be had about Medicare Advantage plans, but hopefully today, like I said, hopefully I've provided a basic foundation that you'll begin to build upon as you do continued learning. All right, so here are some additional things to consider about Advantage plans, but I think we've covered some, if not all of these. So again, more of a review or reminder before we transition to the next section. So Medicare Advantage plans offer comprehensive coverage. Some include Part D, some do not. Medicare Advantage plans may require referral to see a specialist. You cannot combine an Advantage plan with a Medigap plan. They do not work with Medigap plans. So again, we'll learn more about Medigaps tomorrow. And Don has a little bit of experience with that, as he shared a little bit ago. Not all providers are included in the Medicare Advantage plan network, and Advantage plans require clients to pay some of the costs of covered care and drugs. When it comes to choosing an Advantage plan, it's important to look at both the health benefits and the drug benefits for each plan separately. You can do this by going to Medicare.gov. SHIBA advisors can assist clients with this. So this would be going to the website and using the Plan Finder. You can also go to an Advantage Plans website for a summary of benefits and provider lists. So again, it's important to note that it's always good to or recommended to verify provider participation. And you can do that by contacting the provider directly, especially if it's someone that a client is hoping to stick with, or is needing some special care or something of that nature. So provider participation is important. How SHIBA counselors help clients? They can help compare options using the Plan Finder, explain details about coverage so that the client can then use that information to decide on a plan that'll best fit their medical needs, priorities, and preferences. All right, so can you think of any questions about Medicare Advantage plans that you think clients might bring to you? You're welcome to share out or to write those in your workbook. Anyone have any thoughts on this? I think most oftentimes you'll find yourself asking a lot of the screening questions. So kind of getting more information from the clients to kind of help them help.
The two most common ones I have are drug appeals and plan denials and prior authorizations. And why isn't something covered?
Yeah,
And then
and
why does it take so long?
one question I have is, let's see, it's kind of complicated. So you go in so you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, you go in for a procedure, and you find out after the procedure has been done that the anesthesiologist was from out of network, so you have to pay for that service. But nobody said anything to you before you went in for the procedure. Am I making sense? Do you get that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, I had that issue happen with my mom when she had surgery. She went in network and the anesthesiologist was out of network. I had to contact the insurance agency and then they had to rebill under an in-network thing. So they were able to fix it, but it was a pain in the neck.
Oh.
Yeah, they should. That's called balance billing, and they aren't allowed to do that. So
Right.
if you're getting services at an in-network hospital, the providers have to be in network.
Ah, interesting. So it's a matter of going through what, the appeal process?
Right, exactly. I would, well, yeah, I would contact them first and see maybe they just made a mistake. Sometimes it's just a simple mistake, but then if the insurance doesn't cover it, because they should, the provider can't be in, they have to be in network if they're treating you at an in-network hospital.
Right.
So then you just need to contact the insurance company and let them know, or the provider, but they will work it out. You can file a complaint if they don't.
Usually calling the insurance company will rectify it. But yeah, I mean, it's happened lots of times in the past and that's kind of an incidental service because you don't really have control over it. But if that anesthesiologist is working in a network hospital, they have to be covered.
Yeah, they have to provide, they have to accept and provide in-network services. Yes.
In the meantime, you're spending hours on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah. And then I have a second question about ambulance service. That seems to be the big confuser, I think, in the whole providing of medical services, because you've got private ambulances and you've got your Medic One services. So those are different prices. And in my situation, when I think I told you yesterday, I went from being a $0 a year kind of $0 a year patient to a $750,000 patient. I had a massive stroke, but I was visiting my kids in California when it happened. I'm on Kaiser, and where they live in California, Kaiser doesn't, Kaiser is many miles away. So to begin with, I ended up having a $20,000 ambulance fee for getting me to a hospital in Santa Barbara. And so, I mean, $20,000 for for an ambulance fee was terrible. But I ended up sending them both my Kaiser card as well as my Medicare card, and suddenly my share was $150.
Phew, that's a lot of money.
A big
Yeah,
difference.
and I never
That makes
got
a
an
big difference.
I never got an explanation about the difference between $150 and 20,000. So I assumed there was some. Oh, and the other thing that never showed up is Kaiser has a really nice way of sending you monthly statements about, you know, what your charge was, what they paid, and what is left for you. On that particular item, the ambulance item, there was never anything from Kaiser about, okay, we paid a bunch of money for you for the ambulance. So to this day, I have no understanding of how a $20,000 bill became my responsibility, 150. I mean, I was grateful, but no understanding. And I'm just thinking, if I were counseling a client about that, I wouldn't have any idea what to say to them about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, as a counselor, you can share your experience, and now everyone else here can share your experience and try to help them get it fixed.
Mhm.
I guess.
Thanks so much for sharing. And we're happy you're here with us today.
Yeah.
Um,
The good news, Karen, is that you'll learn how to help people with those kinds of
I
but
think I
it's
hear
not
something.
basic.
Noreen, I don't think your speaker microphone is down.
Huh.
There we
Good.
go. That's better.
There we go. Okay. As I said, good news, Karen, is that you will learn how to help people.
No, it's better,
But not great.
try one more time.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but it's very faint though.
Can you hear me now?
That's it. There you go.
I switched to my computer. So the good news, Karen.
Oh, we lost you
But
again.
now you
Sorry.
That's not a basic. You'll learn how to help people with ambulance issues if you choose to. You're not hearing me, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do. I'm on my speakers now. Is it better now?
okay.
I don't know. Never mind. I'll put it in the chat.
All right. She'll add it in the chat. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your participation and for your time. So please don't forget that you have a whole support system and wonderful resources that help you along your journey. So with that, I think, are we going to take a 5-minute break, or are we just going to go ahead into the plan finder?
I say we take a break.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe resume at 3:30? 6
Yeah.
minutes? Is that good with everyone? All right. See you in 6. Noreen, do you want to try troubleshooting?
Yep, I do. Hold on.
That's good. There you had it.
You had it just a second ago. Yeah.
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to test my sound. Is that better?
Yep, you're
Can you-
good.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Shan. All right. So over and over, we've talked about the Medicare Plan Finder, right? And that's the tool that we use to help our clients for most of the counseling that we do. So I'm going to take you on a tour of the Medicare Plan Finder. Sounds like a few of you have used this, so that's fantastic that you're familiar with it already. We find the Plan Finder on Medicare.gov. Once you get into Medicare.gov or any other official site like SSA, you can tell you're at the real site because it's going to have the flag and the validation on the top left-hand corner. From the home screen, you can log into your Medicare account or help a client log into their account if they have one when we're counseling. Accounts are very helpful. We can do that from this screen and then go to the Plan Finder from their account screen. Or we can go to the Plan Finder. And you can see there's all sorts of other information here too. And the Medicare.gov website is a primary resource for us for information. The search is a fantastic function on here. And there's all sorts of things. And we'll talk a little bit more about resources tomorrow if we have enough time left. But there's also some options down on the bottom. And remember we talked about what Medicare covers? There it is right there. Okay. When you're looking for that durable medical equipment or things like that. Okay. But we are going to go to the Medicare Plan Finder. We do that by going to Find Health and Drug Plans. During the open enrollment period, this gets started with Medicare, that turns into a Find Plans for Next Year button. And we have buttons that, that it's pretty easy to find it, especially during open enrollment. So we're going to find plans now. Right now, the Plan Finder is running, it's doing comparisons for plans that would start the 1st of next month. So if we're helping someone who's new to Medicare, if they've moved to the area and they're going to be eligible for coverage June 1st, that's when it would start. Okay. For someone who's new to Medicare, that's not going to be eligible until August 1st. We can help them now because they're in their initial enrollment period, right? That we're in that 3rd month before for the people starting August 1st. We could help them and enroll them in a plan, but it's not going to start until they're eligible for their Medicare to start, which is August 1st. But for anyone other than those new to Medicare people, if we help them with a plan, we're looking at it starting June 1st. And so as we're looking at the costs and things today, it's going to be showing us June through the end of the year, June through December 31st for their medication coverage, okay? Because that is the period that this covers, because at the end of the year, The plans expire and the new ones start for January 1st. Okay, and you'll see that a little bit more too, but I'm just going to put in my zip code. It's 99203 if you want to send me flowers. And we're going to start by looking at Medicare Part D plans, just the standalone drug plans. So you can just see that drug coverage by itself, because we're going to kind of use this to try to help improve the understanding of Part D. And we're going to start out saying, it asks if you want Medicare, if you get help with the Medicare health or drug costs. And we talked about that low income assistance that's available for people, different programs. We're going to say for now, I don't get any help from these plans. This is for someone who's not eligible for any financial assistance. Then it says, do you want to see your drug costs when you compare plans? If someone's not taking any medications and they don't really care about pharmacies or anything like that, now this is much more common in King County than it is in Forks, where if someone can't go to their local pharmacy, they might have to drive 30 or 40 miles, right? So, but you know, some people just really, they haven't taken any medications, they don't plan to, they don't really care, they just want a plan, right? And they're just trying to get that coverage in place so they don't have a penalty. So we can say no, and it takes us right to the plans, okay? And we have nothing, we don't really have any information. They're kind of all the same as far as we don't see any drug and premium costs, because for this one, we have no monthly premium, it's zero. Remember, I was talking about those 3 0 premium plans. There's the first one, and we have no drug costs. So it's 0 for that too. But we see the deductible, and we see we have links to other elements of this. And they're sorted right now by the lowest drug plus premium cost, meaning the premium plus the cost for drugs. Well, on all of these, our costs for drugs are 0 because we didn't enter any drugs in. So there's nothing to have a cost for. Everyone following me? We also have no pharmacies. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to enter a drug, okay? And it's when we can just go back, and we can just go back on our plan finder, and I'm going to enter lisinopril. It's just a super common tier 1 generic that's almost always a no cost. It costs more for a drug company. It costs more for the plan to process a claim and add it to the total paid than it does to just cover it. So we'll put that one in there. And it comes up with the most common dosage. Okay, wherever we have a carrot, we have a choice. So we can change the dosage. If someone had 20 milligrams, we could change it. And we could do, if they're doing 1 a day, right, 30 every month. We can also switch it to every 3 months. If they get 3-month fills, we could do 90 every 3 months, right? But I want to show you guys how it works like monthly, that we get to see the monthly cost. So I'm just going to add the 30 every month. So we have a monthly cost. I'm going to add that to the drug list. And then we can add another drug. And I'm going to throw atorvastatin in here. That's a cholesterol medication. That's also a super generic. Okay. Lots of people with high cholesterol take atorvastatin or rosuvastatin. And so I'm just going to throw that in, because what I'm doing is I'm showing you drugs that generally have no copays. And we have the most common dosage is 20 milligrams. If we want to change that, we can. I mean, 40 was the most common, and we can change that. Okay. So here we have our list. We're going to pretend that that's all our person takes. And we're done. We say we're done adding drugs. Because we put some drugs in here, we now get to choose pharmacies. This didn't happen when we said that we weren't looking at drugs. Okay. Can everyone see this okay? Do you need me to make my screen bigger? It looks like lots of people are leaning in. Is that better? Is that easier to see, or is it too short of a screen now? Okay. So I always like to add mail order, so we have that choice as a reference, and as a reference, the cost of mail order. And then in this case, I'm going to pick Walgreens, and anything that's like the national chain or something like that, like Walgreens, Rite Aid, Safeway. Those all, if they're a national chain, they're going to be good. The prices are going to be or they're going to be in network anywhere. So like if you have Fred Meyer, they're going to be able to use any Kroger pharmacy, okay? Because Fred Meyer is part of the Kroger network. If you choose Walmart, they're going to be able to go to any Walmart pharmacy and get these filled in the country. I'm also going to pick Rose Hours because in Spokane, Rose Hours is a local kind of, it's a regional chain supermarket, an independent, that they act like an independent pharmacy on their networks. So we picked some plans here, and mail order always gets pushed down to the end, and we're going to continue. Now it's going to keep our first choice on the left-hand side all the time, which is kind of nice. So when we go into the plans, when we finish making our pharmacy selections, because when we're looking at drug prices, things can vary by the drugs that are on the list and how they're covered by the plan, and the pharmacies and which pharmacies that we're using, because the pharmacies can be different statuses. Now it's the first page, it's sorting it by the lowest drug plus premium cost. So it's taking that premium, that monthly premium, and adding the premiums for the rest of the year. This is starting in June 1st. So we're talking about 7 months of the year, right? Because it's for June through December premiums. 7 times 0 is 0. And then we have the drug costs, the copays that they're paying at the pharmacy to pick it up. So you can see they can have these two medications. And on this first plan, they're going to pay nothing for premiums for the rest of the year. And they're not going to have to pay copays for those medications. Okay. And we go down to our next choice is the Cigna Health Saver. Again, we have a 0 premium plan, no drug cost. And it's going to keep going. We have, and our third one is our third 0 premium, right? But see how we have copays on that one. So it's the fourth on the list because there's the other options that are lower cost before it for the premiums plus the copays. Now this is the copays for the rest of the year. So we're really only talking about less than $3 a month for 7 months worth of medications here, right? But it's still that they're going to have the copays. So I'm going to show you we're going to go in and look at one of the things that we can do is we can add these to a comparison. And I'm just clicking the little boxes on each one. We can do up to 3. You see them across the bottom. This is the first thing that I like to do. And then we can compare them. And so we have a side-by-side comparison. We have the monthly premium across the top. We have the star ratings, and then we have the premium and the drug deductible. And then we have whether the drugs are covered or not. This can be extremely helpful if you have someone with a list of 15 medications or something like that, that you can see that, okay, there's not one covered. That's something to consider here. And then we have the pharmacies side by side. So if someone really wanted to go to Safeway, it's going to be a network in all 3 of these plans, right? But if they want to go to Safeway and have their lowest cost, it's going to be the WellCare Value Script because their cost is 0 there, where at the other 2 pharmacies, they have those premiums. Is everyone following me? Okay. So on this plan, that was the first one that came up, we have the 0 cost at Safeway, Walgreens, and mail order. And those are all preferred pharmacies, right? And that's pretty common. Every once in a while, we'll see in-network pharmacies that have a lower cost than preferred pharmacies. And this happens especially like in those smaller areas. You might see that an in-network pharmacy is lower cost than mail order, which will be preferred, because they might not have preferred pharmacies, brick and mortar pharmacies in a certain area. Okay. And like I cover the east side of the state, and I see that in places like Clarkston, or just those smaller towns that are a little ways away. We see that in Clarkston or Colville or those more isolated areas. And that probably sees that a lot out on the island too, huh? So we have the different costs for all the different pharmacies that we picked for each of those plans. And you can see, so there's a lot of variation here, right? by the pharmacy. Because we're looking at the same drugs on everything. We're talking about the same drugs for all of these. So it's the pharmacies that are different. That's the only difference between these, right? So this is the price variations by pharmacy. Okay, so let's go back to the details. I'm going to look at the details of this plan, and we can do it by going back to our plan results and clicking the details, or we can do it from here. And this details page shows us the different information on the plan. There we have the totals up at the top. And then we have breakdowns of all the costs. Like here we have our premium, it's $0. The drug deductible is $590. So on this plan, when we're paying $0 for drugs, nothing is getting applied to that deductible, right? You can see how the deductible is just sitting out there lingering. It's waiting to collide with the right medication. Right? It's all right. So we have what we have on our details page. This is the drugs that it's covering. And we're just giving it these as reference. These aren't people aren't, because we did this and they sign up for a plan, doesn't mean that they're getting atorvastatin and lisinopril. If one ends, it's just showing that those are covered by it, okay? And then we have the different pharmacies and how they act, if they're preferred or in network. And if it was out of network, it would show us that too. And then it would show not covered, and we'd have full retail prices. Then we have the price breakdown by pharmacy. This is like that side by side on the comparison screen. Okay, except it's just in a little different format. Before it was going by plan, now it's going by pharmacy, how much each of the medications is for that total that we were seeing on the comparison screen. And then we have the total drug plus premium cost, which in this case we have no premium, so it's just the drug costs. And so here's our monthly breakdown, and see how it's zeros at Safeway, right? Which makes sense. It's 0 every month, so our yearly total is 0. Let me just see if I can get back up there. Do you see how you see up here at the very top, we have the total drug plus premium cost? That it's 0. If you take $17.30 for the 7 months, it's going to equal $121.10. Here again, we have 0, $19.70 for the 7 months, $137.90. Everyone following how this works? Okay. So we have the breakdown by month. And then if they want to, let's say if they want to go to Safeway, this shows their cost in each coverage phase, because we have different coverage phases. In this case, if we're not using the deductible, and our retail cost on our atorvastatin and lisinopril is $265. So meaning if the insurance wasn't covering it, it would only cost people $265 for the atorvastatin and lisinopril at Safeway. Okay, but the plan is covering it. So the cost before the deductible is met for these drugs is 0. Okay, they're not making people pay for it. And the cost after the deductible is 0. And the cost after the out-of-pocket cap is 0. Anyone remember what the out-of-pocket cap is? Yep, $2,000. Thanks, Sharon. And guess what? It's right up here. The Plan Finder gives us so much information. It's great. We don't have to memorize very much. We kind of have to understand like the initial enrollment periods and things like that, right? But the Plan Finder shows us everything else, which is just like such a wonderful thing. And we get to click all over the place, and it can tell us, here's like you can click to learn about the $2,000 cap. So if you forget something, or if you want to review in different words than the materials, look in the Plan Finder and just go through the Plan Finder and start clicking around. I spent so much time in here when I first started learning Medicare, and it wasn't as nice then, honestly, because I started doing counseling in about 2015, but I wrote a lot of materials and things before that, and it wasn't nearly this informative. But we have all these different things that you can click around, and it will explain what it is if you forget, or if you just want, reinforcement on learning that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we saw those kind of basic things. See how I keep going back on the top left corner? It'll just take me back, and here I am at that list where it was ranking everything by the lowest drug plus premium cost. Okay. I'm going to go back to the drugs and pharmacies. Remember I told you about Eliquis, the blood thinner? I'm going to throw that in here. And now we're going to get to see. And so we just saw that we had our 3 zero premium plans come up as our 3 lowest cost options, right? And that people could get no cost at all for those medications, right? All those good things that we just saw. Now I just added Eliquis, and it's only available 5 milligrams. People take it twice a day. My mom has her timer set for it. We're done adding drugs. Okay. It's funny, I'll be on a phone call with my mom and I'll hear ding, 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 ding. Oh, I need to go take my Eliquis. Okay. 6:20. Must be 6:20. All right. So we still have our pharmacies chosen because they're going to stay unless we change them. And I don't want to change anything because I want you guys to see what just happened, because all we did is change the medication list now, right? Our pharmacies are staying the same. And now let's look at this. We have an AARP RX preferred plan. It's $83.80 a month for the premium. That's how much they're paying to have the plan. Before we had a zero premium plan there, that they were going to pay nothing. Now they're going to pay $83.80 a month for the next 7 months. So of this charge, of the $984.27, which is our premium, plus our drug costs, right? $83.80 of that for 7 months. And you guys can see my calculator now, right? On the screen with it. Good. Okay. Of this $984, $586 of it is premiums that they're paying just to have the plan. Okay. And then the rest of it, the other almost $400, like $398, right? Is or 397 something. That is the copays for the medications. So do you get how that's working? That this is for the rest of the year. Okay. So we're going to look at this. Now we're going to look at this. We're going to take these out because we're going to do this one. This has a 0 drug deductible. Okay. You're going to get to see the effect of deductibles now. See this Humana plan? $83.80 for this, $984. The Humana plan is $110. Remember we talked about those plans varying widely in prices from 0 per month up to 110 and change. Here's our 110.10. That's the high end plan of the high end of the spectrum. And this is showing it's working with all 12 drug plans that are available in Washington. These are the same for the whole state. So we have that Humana Zero Premium plan, but I'm trying to show you, normally we might check that and see if there's any differences like for pharmacies, and if that would be worth the difference in price. The difference in these two is about $100 or $120 for the rest of the year, if we look at the math. And the way I'm getting that, right, is that this is $1085 and this one's $984, right? So that's $101 difference, right? So then it'd be up to and so 101 divided by 7 months, is that about $15 a month? That's that might be worth it. I would pay $15 a month not to have to go to Walmart to get my prescriptions. I hate the Walmart parking lot. I feel like I'm gonna get hit by a big white truck every time. And so I don't like to go there. The irony of that is I go to Costco all the time where I have to walk further, and it's big black and big white trucks, plus little speedy, hybrid and EV vehicles, right, darting through the parking lot. But yet I still it's like I have that Walmart premium that I'll pay more to not have to go there. I'm going to make this bigger again. So we have the plans ranked in order. I picked the United Healthcare because that gives us a 0 deductible. I'm going to skip this one because it would kind of show you the same thing. Look, there's our Cigna plan, the 0 premium plan, right? with our $590 deductible. That's in third place on this one. So we're going to add that one to our comparison just to see. And we probably wouldn't be going down this far, honestly, because people probably aren't going to say, oh, I want to pay $200. Yeah, I do want to pay $200 more in the next 7 months to have this plan. But we're just doing this for an example. And then let's get down here. You can see we have, I'm looking for one that has, there we go. There's our Humana. We'll do this Humana plan. We have a $22.40 premium, okay? And we have a $573 deductible. I'm going to add that to our comparison. And I think one of the things I'm looking for is different pharmacy networks, so you guys can see an out-of-network pharmacy, I'm hoping. All right. So we threw those into our comparison. We have our side-by-side comparison, very useful, right? And we have our premiums there. And we can see that all 3 of our prescriptions are covered on all 3 of these plans. Remember, this is what they're going to be paying out of pocket. So we have our side-by-side comparison. And when it's ranking these plans on by the cost, it's by the lowest cost that's possible from the pharmacies that we've chosen. Okay. So we can see our lowest, this was our first cost, and our lowest price is at Safeway, and then it's just a little, some change more at Walgreens. But their very lowest cost is mail order. They could save $20 over the 7-month period by doing mail orders. Now this is still premium plus the copays. Let's go and look at this plan. And because we have no deductible, what do you think is going to happen with those payments? Remember we had those monthly copays that were all the zeros on the other plan for our medications. What do you guys think is going to happen right now? We added the Eliquis, and so we know that we have drug costs now, so we're going to have costs in there. But what are we going to see? Because there's no deductible. Anyone want to make a good guess? No bad answers. Okay. So we have here we have our drug list, right here we have our pharmacies and how they're acting, that we have the 3 preferred pharmacies. And there we have the cost for each medication. Look at the cost, there's the copays for the Eliquis, how much it'll be for the year. And we have, because the plan has 0 deductible, it had that higher premium, has 0 deductible, we have nice even costs each month. They're going to pay just under $57 a month every month to go get their medications at the pharmacy. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Because there's no deductible, that it's just going to have nice even costs. And let's look at Safeway. That's despite the Eliquis, if they didn't have insurance, would be $640 a month at Safeway. Is everyone following this? So before the Eliquis, it would apply for a deductible, but we don't have one. So so on this one, because we have 0 deductible, it goes right into the after deductible or the initial coverage phase. This cost after deductible is the initial coverage phase. The Eliquis is going to be $47 a month. The atorvastatin is $5 a month, and the lisinopril is $4.81, which gives us that $56.81 for the medications each month. Okay. Now let's go back to our comparison. And look at our Cigna plan. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I only have 1 minute left. We have the same detail page with all the same details in the same order. Let's go down to our monthly payments. Look at the cost of our Eliquis. It went from I think it was $643 on the other one to the $1,214. So $1,200 over the 7 months. Now look at what happened to our payments in June. We have a $594 payment. And then it goes to $103.90 a month for the cost of the medications. That's because this plan has a $590 drug deductible. And the Eliquis is $611 and the deductible applies. So you're paying the deductible towards that Eliquis. And then once the deductible is paid, you go into the initial coverage period after the deductible has been paid, and it's $103.90 a month for the Eliquis and no cost for the other two drugs. So you can see we have see how we have the $103.90 on the month. Once the coverage kicks in, we have the $103.90. But this is because we have the deductible. Okay. Do you want me to keep, anyone who needs to go can go. Do you guys want me to keep going for just a few more minutes? You're welcome to, do you want to stay in and I can do a little bit more? But if you need to go, please feel free to go because we'll be doing this again. So you can see how things change a lot and you can go in and play with this. Okay.
So, stupid question. The
No stupid
deductible.
questions.
Yeah, they are. Anyway, but when you say deductible, so does a person have to pay that like in the first month and then everything, the discounts kick in, or how does that work?
If they have a medication that requires the deductible be paid, they're going to have to pay it the first month they get that medication.
Oh.
So it just sits out there and waits for that collision, right? So, and it's the Eliquis that's triggering that deductible. If they didn't have the Eliquis, they would have zero cost. Like, let's say they get prescribed the Eliquis in August, okay? And so they get Eliquis filled their first time in August. The way this would end up it wouldn't look this way as we're doing it because we wouldn't know about the Eliquis in May, right? And we're not entering it because they're not taking it yet. But the way it would work out is you'd have no cost in June, no cost in July, and this would be our $594.07 because it would be the Eliquis, which is triggering the deductible, plus the costs of the others, and it shifts everything down. And basically, what happens is you have, like, if it's later, then we have it. As the year goes by, we see that cost shifting down to whatever the first month is, because that's the way it's assuming that the plan finder is assuming that everything on your drug list is getting filled every month the way we've entered it. Okay. Did that make sense, James? And that was an excellent question, by the way. Okay. So then let's go back because our per client, man, they just can't get a. And not only do they have atorvastatin and lisinopril, and now they had to go on Eliquis for blood thinners. So they're going to take Jardiance now. This is another name brand drug. High cost. We're not changing anything except that we added that Jardiance, right? We're getting the same result, but our cost went up a little bit. Now, Jardiance is a really expensive medication, so we would expect our costs to go up quite a lot, but it really only went up a little bit because this plan has zero deductible and it has what's called enhanced benefits. And what the other thing that's happening is we're hitting the $2,000 max, and we can tell that because you see how November and December is zero cost to the client. They're still getting their medication every month, but they're not having to pay for them in November and December because between what they are paying in their copays and what the plan pays for them, because it's called an enhanced plan, so it's contributing towards their costs, they're hitting that $2,000 maximum out of pocket in October. The good news is you don't have to be able to calculate that because the plan finder does it for you, right? And the total that's on the front page is this 103.81 for the 5 months plus the premium for the 7 months, because they have to pay for the premium all year, but they don't have to pay the copays at the pharmacy because they're hitting their maximum. You can see this one, look at how they have these nice consistent copays of 111.85. Well, they're hit because of that higher copay, they're hitting it sooner. And so they're paying more towards it here by the end of September. So October is actually a lower copay. They're hitting it, they're not having to pay that full amount in October. A little bit different. Okay. There's also a prescription payment plan for the people. And so to help with that high cost up front, people might choose to do a prescription payment plan, which is going to distribute their costs throughout the rest of the year. And we're going to look at the Cigna plan for that. Because this is the one where we have the high cost the first month. And do you see how their total drug plus premium cost is $2,000? That's that full $2,000 maximum because the plan's not contributing anything toward, it's a zero premium plan. It's not contributing anything towards the drug costs that count towards that out-of-pocket maximum. Okay, the plan's not putting anything towards that. Where the ones with the higher premiums do, part of the premium is basically the higher premium, the plan is contributing towards the cost. So here we have that high $719 amount, right? That they're going to have to pay to get their medications. And then it's going to turn into monthly copays. Is everyone following that? We have the deductible included in this month, and then we have these copays each month. And do you see have you noticed how our copays each month went up, way up from those higher payment plans? Because it's not contributing so much. The plan's not contributing. So what we can do is we can look at the prescription payment plan. And I just have to remember where it is. There it is. So the prescription payment plan is a plan that allows you to distribute your costs throughout the rest of the year. So people might choose to do this, and mail order is quarterly, so it doesn't increase it. But let's look at, we've been looking at Safeway, right? So we can look at the prescription payment plan right on the plan finder. It's doing all the calculating for us. And it's taking their payments for the rest of the year, their $2,000, and it's distributing them out. So if they didn't have the payment option, if they were just paying paying themselves, this is how much they would be paying out of pocket each month. Okay. Everyone following me? This is the same as what we were just looking at on the plan finder. But with the payment option, they're breaking the cost, the $719, into the rest of the year. So for the first month, they're going to pay $285.71. And then it's going to take the payment and they're going to take this off. They're going to take the payment out of this total. And for this, they're going to divide it by the rest of the month. And then they're going to add the copays due for that month. And so for the second month in July, they'd pay $118.92. For the third month, they pay $174. So it distributes their costs for the rest of the year. But it's adding in their copay every month. This is really confusing when we get this far into it. Okay, you don't need to know this. I'm just trying to show you so you know it's there and you can look at it. What people choose to do oftentimes, you can opt in and opt out of this, is they'll do it just for this first month. So this $720 is distributed across the months, and they're paying $100 for the prescription payment plan each month, right? Because it's the 7 months. And then their additional payments, they're just paying them at the pharmacy.
Is there a reason why you only show 7 months, or the graph shows 7 months, not the whole year?
Yeah, because it's for the rest of the year, and this is for coverage starting in June.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep. When we do this in open enrollment, it shows the whole 12 months. Yep. And until for open enrollment in the month of December, we can see the whole next year. But once we hit January, the coverage is starting in February. So the plan finder is February through December. So it's only it's only before the year actually starts that we can see the whole year. Okay. So my coworkers are going to get sick of hearing me say this. But the way I learn this is by practicing and talking out loud. And that's how I pretty much learn everything that I really want to try to do. Is I would just sit there and talk to my screen. And I suggest doing that same thing, just kind of trying to talk your way through. And part of it is just learning to take what's in your brain, because it's all beautiful in our brains, and get it out of our mouth by explaining it. And even if it's to the cat or the dog or a stuffed animal or just your computer screen, it's all fine and dandy. But I did a lot of talking out loud when I went through this, because hearing yourself say it helps it sink in too, theoretically, for most people. If you're an anti-audible learner, I suppose that doesn't help. But so that's the plan finder, and you can get to it by Medicare.gov. You can do it yourself anytime you want. And you can just pick some of those simple generics. If you guys want the names of those, I can share it with you that I used. And you can mess with the dosages and things like that. And the pharmacies, you can play around the pharmacies and see the difference. If you pick one of the clinics or one of the independent pharmacies, you'll often see that it's out of network. And then you get to see, that it's not going to be covered. Let's take off Rose hours and we'll put in Chaz. Now we're going to compare, and I think that we're going to see that it's out of network. So you get to see how it's out of network, and look, our cost went to $11,000 for those medications for the rest of the year for the 7 months. You can play with all sorts of things and just see the impact of it. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Anything you want me to go back to? Feel like you don't know? The best thing you can do is put your hands on it and play with it yourself. You can also switch to Medicare Advantage plans right up here, or by selecting a plan type. See up this top right corner? I'm going to take these off. Like that. And now we have Medicare Advantage plans. Look at what our drug price went to $495 for the rest of the year with a 0 premium plan for Medicare Advantage. This is in Spokane County. So it can be profound differences. We'll do more of this tomorrow if we have time. We also do this in other trainings, so. And your local trainings, you'll be doing this too. Okay. That's it. That's a wrap. Unless you have questions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow. Same
See you
bat
all
time,
tomorrow.
same bat
See you
channel.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay, you too.
I'm going to stop the recording. Transcriber.